Hello and welcome to ScreenHour with me, Kieran.
I mean, Mikey Moose.
And in this episode, we're going to go for another Convince Me style format. We went backwards and forwards on what we're going to do this week. But Mikey says he wants to watch certain things before we do them, and he hasn't had a chance to get around to certain ones. But I managed to convince him that we'll do this one as a Convince Me. So I've convinced him in order to convince him. If that makes any sense.
How many times can you say convince?
I know, yeah. But we're gonna do Don't Worry Darling. So Olivia Wilde's Don't Worry Darling, starring Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, Chris Pine, and Olivia Wilde herself. And then there's others as well. But I don't know what their names.
Right, you listed off a fair few of them. Yeah, to be fair, we was like gonna do Lord of the Rings, and I've hadn't watched any of it up until for FYI it's Sunday now, and I've watched 3 episodes. Started watching them on Friday, so I know it's finished as of this Friday just gone on the 14th of October. But I think what we're gonna do is next week's episode, or the next time it comes out for you, that'll be a Lord of the Rings one.
Yeah.
Just so I've fully watched it all.
Yeah, because it's a series, we like to sort of, try and at least we want to watch all of it before we even talk about it, because the season finale is always going to have a big thing going on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Big moment.
But now we've decided to do Don't Worry Darling, which is interesting because I don't know how Kieran's going to convince. I think Kieran's going to convince me not to watch it because I've already been on the hype. Excuse me, to watch it.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, to be fair, because last week I went to the cinema and I saw 3 different things at cinema last week. So I went to see Ticket to Paradise, Ticket to Paradise, which is George Clooney and Julia Roberts' new film, and that's a fun film. I enjoyed that.
I can't believe you watched that, man. That looks so it's by the numbers. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It doesn't look like it's going to reinvent the wheel or anything like that, but it's it's a fun, relaxing film, and that's what I wanted to watch at the time. So plus, I really like George Clooney, so I went in for that. But it's not something it's worth doing an episode on. And then I watched The Woman King, which I am downright convincing Mikey he needs to go see it because we need to do an episode on it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that. I'm quite intrigued in that.
And then I watched Don't Worry Darling. Don't Worry Darling was actually the one I was intending to watch to begin with, but it had late showings and I'm working nights at the moment, so yeah, I didn't really have time to go and see that stuff. So I eventually got around to seeing it, and I was really bummed out towards the end of it, to be honest. There's been a lot of controversy and shit going on around it since its premiere, hasn't it? Did Harry Styles spit on Chris Pine? That's the big hot topic, that is.
I don't think he did, really, to be fair.
No, it looks so convincing that he did, but there's no way he did. There's no way he did.
I can see why people did think he did that, because, I watched the footage, watched a little 10-second clip probably half a dozen times.
Yeah, it's just the way Chris reacts and the whole timing and everything is just so perfect for if he had spat on him. But I think I actually did see a clip where Harry Styles did a concert and he goes something like, "Oh, it's great to be back, touring or whatever. I've been in Venice recently or something." And I was like, "I just got back from Venice after spitting on Chris Pine or something in his concert." So he was taking the piss out of himself for it. But I don't think he did. Now the film itself, Don't Worry Darling, right? When it first came out, I was really interested in it because I was like, Florence Pugh is fucking brilliant in everything. Chris Pine, I feel, is also brilliant in everything. He's one of my faves, right? And I feel like everything he's in, it just makes it better. But then Harry Styles, I was like, I was skeptical about Harry Styles and Dunkirk, but he was, arguably one of the better things in Dunkirk.
Yeah, I've only seen him in Dunkirk.
Yeah, and so I didn't mind him. So then when I heard he was cast in this, so I was like, all right, see how this goes, sort of thing. So I was somewhat looking forward to seeing this, but then with all the controversy and everything coming out, and then all the reviews seriously bombed it, and I was like, oh great, okay.
I know you've watched it and I haven't, but I feel like it was bad how much image it was getting, and people were talking about everything but the film itself.
Yeah.
And I think that's bad. Like, I think they like if it was, they should have gave it more of a chance for take it for what it is. And now it's like, even now, like it's got mixed reviews, and that's one of the reasons I want to see it. But like again, I think this is what I'm looking forward to, like talking to you about it, and hopefully, like our quote unquote audience, because we spoke a little bit about that, but now you're actually going to talk about the film as opposed to like
we ain't got speculation anymore. I've actually seen it.
speculation, and we're all not going to talk about the drama. It's sometimes just going to judge a film by like
The film.
the film, and not so much the behind the scenes drama or whatever. Because at the end of the day, like, not to piss, it's not like mega secretive, but piss on anybody's chips. Stanley Kubrick was a right prick. Like, you know what I mean? Look how many fucking good films he made. Like, I'm not saying Olivia Wilde is a prick, but the behind the scenes drama for Stanley Kubrick films is fucking mental.
Yeah.
And if you didn't see a film because of behind the scenes drama, you probably won't watch fuck all.
Yeah, true. So the film, how do I explain the premise? It's hard to explain this film without outright spoiling it, because the premise of the film is a twist.
It reminds me of like Stepford Wives, that type of vibe. Like, I think that's what like the trailer marketed it to me. It was like a thriller, but like thriller Stepford Wives type of thing.
Yeah, it is a thriller. You could argue there's an element of horror, but it's not a horror film. But there's like there's like a sort of you could watch it at Halloween. You know what I mean? It's like it's got that sort of that thriller, dark drama sort of there. A bit like that Florence Pugh one she did called Midsummer.
Midsummer's great. Like, to be fair, A24 made it, but like, and then like nothing but bangers. But Midsummer's really good.
So this is similar to that, but it's not as good in its sort of like tone. But in an essence, it's set in like 50s, 60s America. So all the men go off to work and the women are stay-at-home housewives that do all the dusting, the cleaning, the cooking for when the man comes back in through the door, right? So it's very of its time, right? And you kind of feel that that's going to be this sort of like the crux of the film. That's going to be sort of the bit that twists and changes, like why they focus so much on, especially when you realize it's a female director as well. You're like, why have they decided to go with this tone and keep the women working at home? Surely they'd want to break from that role as such. So you're kind of wondering where it's going and what it's trying to do. But then when the twist occurs, you kind of understand it a lot more. But again, it's hard to describe without outright spoiling exactly what the twist is or whatever. But I think my problem with it was it took an hour. Well, actually, I don't know the timings, but it took about half the film basically for anything interesting to actually happen. It was all built world building and building it up. Right? Then there's like 5, maybe 10 minutes of the most brilliant bit of writing and acting. Right? It's just how do I say it? Florence Pugh and Chris Pine are in a conflict with one another.
Yeah.
Right? But basically Chris Pine invites himself round to their house. They live in like a society and Chris Pine is like the leader of the society.
Yeah, is it called the Victory Project or something like that?
Yeah, that's it, the Victory Project. And they invite Chris Pine invites himself round, and that's a very prestigious thing, is to have Chris Pine's character.
He's like the big dick player, like.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh my god, why is he here, sort of thing. Like
local celeb.
Yeah, basically, sort of thing. It'd be like having the Queen or the King coming round and having dinner at your house. It's like, why is the King at my house? Like, so it's that sort of prestige regality to it. And then so he comes on round, and then because Florence Pugh is questioning her reality and her world and where she is, and why she keeps having these sort of twitchy nightmares and starts seeing things that don't actually seem to be there. And then Chris Pine is fully aware of everything that happens within this little, community of his, and she's in the kitchen basically preparing something for this dinner party, right? And Chris Pine comes in, right, and he starts talking to her like he knows what she's up to, sort of thing, right? And then they go to like have the dinner, right? And they're just basically, back in the 50s and 60s, the men sat at the head of the table because it was all about the man, right? And the women sat just on the edges of the table or whatever, right? Whereas Florence Pugh pushes sort of Harry Styles aside and says, like, I'm sitting at the head of the table opposite Chris Pine at the other end of the head of the table, you know. So they're sat across from each other, right? And they're just staring each other down because each other knows exactly what the other's thinking and what they want to talk about, but nobody else in the room knows what's going on at all. So there's this huge like stare down and this sort of like brilliant witty, remarks and stuff going backwards and forwards at each other, and it's a really brilliant bit of cinema. And I think what's great.
How long's that scene? Like, is there many scenes like that?
No, that's my point. This literally is like a 5-minute scene. They should have dragged it out a bit longer because it was the best thing in the entire film for me, and they should have dragged it out a bit longer. Not too much that they oversaturated it, but it would have held sort of more of a, it just would have
been a standout, like.
Yeah, it would have been even more of a standout, even more of a brilliant thing. I think what really helped though is that with Chris Pine and Florence Pugh, they've worked together before on The Outlaw King, right? And that in itself is a brilliant film.
It's a sick film, that is. I think I watched that with you like ages ago.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I introduced you to it, didn't I?
Yeah.
So they've worked together, so they've got solid chemistry. Because they've worked together, and that film itself was brilliant. So them coming into this, providing they didn't have behind the scenes drama, they should get on quite well. Not just as characters, but as people, right? And then you can feel that chemistry on the scene between them. In the film, you can feel that sort of chemistry, that bond. So they really play off each other so well, and it's done so like brilliantly that we've got this whole like half of the film building up. This scene happens, and you're like, oh shit, like where's it going from here? And then it just fucking falls flat.
The thing is, like, a lot of like films nowadays, this included, and like even like people who like, dare say like myself, who are quite open-minded and watch a lot of different things, is you go to see a film and you think like this actor or actress can't do no wrong, and in my eyes, like Florence Pugh hasn't done no wrong yet, and like you said earlier on, like Chris Pine just like elevates loads of stuff, and like Harry Styles, like he's only been in Dunkirk, but he's been good.
Yeah.
But it's the main thing, like apart from Florence Pugh, the main thing that got me hyped for it, like the only film I know Olivia Wilde has directed, apart from this, is a film called Booksmart. Booksmart's like, it's a great coming of age like film for girls. Like it's basically like Superbad, and ironically enough, the main character is like Jonah Hill's sister. It's basically Superbad for like girls.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely great. But I don't know what else she's directed, Olivia Wilde. But that film is probably one of my favourite films, like of recent memory, Booksmart. But
yeah, well, ironically, I feel like the problem with this film was there was no finalized vision of where it was going, because the film ends with a fade to black, right? And don't get me wrong, I love a fade to black, right? Because it leaves you thinking about what could have this meant, what could have that meant, and the film stays with you a bit longer, and that's, I feel, what cinema is about sometimes. It doesn't have to be every film, but I feel like some of the best films, they always leave you questioning things after you've finished watching it. And I understand that's what they tried to do with this film, and it could have worked, but the biggest problem was about 5 minutes before the fade to black, they just throw in a shitload more questions that need to be answered, and then fade to black, and you're like, wait, what?
still got a lot of things to like.
Yeah,
It's not
like,
just the one thing that makes it ominous. It's loads.
Yeah, just loads of things that just make no sense, and then you try and make sense of loads of different things, and you're like, well, why was this person killed off? And wait, what happens with that? And surely, with them doing this and that, and yeah, so it doesn't make it any sense. Most of it, I just felt like it lacked a bit of directorial vision towards the end of the film. I don't know if that might have been when controversy and whatever started to kick off within the film, like with the on set or whatever, that they sort of like started to shorten schedules or whatever, or some people weren't working on the set at the same time as other people, so the film wasn't able to get its true ending. So I don't know that if that I mean films are not filmed in a linear order; they're filmed in convenience order, right? For like the set and the props and
everything,
like,
yeah.
Availability and like the set, as you say, where you can film and whatever.
Yeah, so it doesn't quite make sense if you look at it in that respect. But the end of the film really sort of as I said, the first half of the film just seems to take forever.
As a thriller, what's it like as a thriller?
I mean, yeah, it's got good, intense sort of thriller, sort of not quite, your hair's on ends, not quite like that. I'm trying to think of a time where. No, literally, like I said, the best thing was when Chris Pine came round for dinner, right, and then that interaction with Florence Pugh. That is the best bit.
To be fair, what another bit like we got. I think someone I know pointed it out, and they literally just said it made me laugh. Said it's worth going to see just to see Harry Styles bang Florence Pugh.
Oh yeah. There's
it's like they are arguably like I'm a straight bloke, but Harry Styles is a good-looking chap. He's a beautiful bloke, and it's like Florence Pugh is stunning. She's like absolutely gorgeous, and she's like incredibly talented. So like I thought, it'd be worth seeing for that. But
I like how I'm like, oh yeah, it's like really intense thriller, and like, oh, it's not that good, but the scene between them and the play and whatever, and you're like, I heard they fuck. I want to go see it because of that.
No, exactly. But now I think it's I think it's interesting just to see something done by Olivia Wilde, because I'm looking at her IMDb now. Apart from so she directed a short called Three Hugs, never heard of, 2 music videos, Booksmart, then a short film, then Don't Worry Darling. So
yeah.
She's had music videos and music videos. I suppose unless you do a really bad one or a really good one, you don't really hear of them. And then Booksmart's great, and then it's essentially Don't Worry Darling.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't. I don't know. I know you Was it boring? Is that why you didn't like it, or what?
It wasn't necessarily boring. I mean, there were moments of I did yawn a moment sometimes, because I was like, oh, can we get to the point, sort of thing. But it was more so at the end of the film that it was like, oh, I don't know if I should have bothered going to the cinema to see that.
I think I'm still put it this way: if the cinema wasn't, the cinema by me is a $5, and I'll go see it because it's a $5. And even though you've quote unquote convinced me not to watch it, I'll go see it because of that. But if the cinema by me was £15, because I know the cinema by my parents, they've got a posh Odeon. It's their cheapest ticket is a £10 or £11.
Yeah, well, I went to see it at an Odeon because it was the only one that was available to me where I was, and that was and because I like to go premiere seating because I like more room for my legs, that was £13.
Really big balls there. Yeah. But no, not to sound like an it boy or trying to be really fashionable and cool, and appeal to our audience or whatever. I don't know. Is that I wanted it to do well because Olivia Wilde seems sound. And she's one of the few female directors who is
well,
really
arguably all the controversy is all around her though.
I don't know though. I know we said we weren't going to discuss much controversy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, as we said, the controversy shouldn't change the film, but she if she's the main focus of controversy, she was the director of the film, so she was in care of everyone that was part of her production. And yeah, because basically during the entire process of the film, her and Harry Styles were together, and then I think by the time it came to the premiere, they'd broken up, and that's why there was like real salty sort of reception between the two of them there. And then and then there's speculation or whatever that her and Florence Pugh don't get on either. So they had like a weird interaction as well at the premiere. So yeah, it was just.
So we totally contradicted ourselves, saying we won't talk about it too much. But however, my other point is that the reason I stick up for it is because the other big one I heard of was that originally Harry Styles' character was going to be played by Shia LaBeouf.
Yes, yeah.
And Florence Pugh had been cast at this point, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm not working with Shia LaBeouf because of all the like dodgy relationship allegations I've heard about him, and it's been a few people, so I don't feel comfortable with that."
Yeah.
So then it got changed to Harry Styles, but they like again we're not we're not mega informed on this, but I don't know when that happened in the production, and also like you say, if she went out with Harry Styles and she split with him or whatever, but I don't know, it's one of them. I think it's very unfortunate that in this case, again, I haven't watched it. I know you have, and like he has just got mixed reviews. It's had like 3 out of 5 stars, or like 5 out of 10, or like 6 out of 10, or whatever.
Yeah.
It hasn't got like it's dog shit or whatever. It's just it's all right. It's got redeeming elements, and that's for what it's worth. That's what I've seen. Like that's the type of vibe I'm feeling off you.
Yeah, it's like I mean, if I was to give it a rating out of 10, IMDb rating out of 10, I probably would give it like a 5.5 or a 6. Right? But I know like when I was in the cinema, there was quite a few people in the cinema, and I know once the film credits came up, because it was like fade to black, and then like the title card came up saying "Don't worry, darling," right? And you could just hear everyone in the cinema just sort of go, "Huh." Like it was just this. It was like a killing. Like everyone, like yeah, it was just a, is that okay. Nobody really knew what to think.
I'll tell you what we're gonna coin now, and like we're gonna this works for like films and not so much TV shows, but for now on, and if you agree, I've just thought of this off the cuff. This is the film rating we'll have. We'll have at the top of the film rating. We'll have go see it at the cinema as many times as you can, as many times as you can facilitate. So, for instance, Top Gun Maverick, obviously it's no secret we both loved that.
Yeah.
I've saw it a couple of times. You saw it 3 times. And then down from that, you've got see it at the cinema once. Then down from that, you've got, most people at least have 2 streaming services. Watch it on streaming, yeah?
Yeah.
And then down from that, it's...
Watch it on telly.
No, yeah, watch it on Freeview, maybe. No, or down from that, it's I'd rather have a hand job of Edward Scissorhands. Or I'd rather have a dump.
To be fair, I'd rather have a dump is higher up than watch it on TV.
Watch it on Freeview, I suppose. But I think, it's quite an imaginative way to look at it. But at the same time, I think that's the world we live in. If you had said, apart from me being interested in it, and
like it has such good potential.
Charlotte wants to see it as well, so I am still going to go see it in the pictures. But as I say,
like I feel like it's so subjective of how it makes you feel after watching it, and after like how it tries to doesn't conclude anything. But the whole premise and story itself, it's very interesting. I want to know what they were trying to do with it, where they were trying to go. Like I can think of my own ideas of where I think it should have gone, or what it should have done, or whatever. But what was their original vision that they wanted to, for me to feel? What did they want to emote from it, sort of thing? So I want to know more, but yeah, it just didn't land.
Well, at least you want to know more. Like I know there's a good podcast I listen to. Dare I say it, maybe better than this one, or just as good, called The Weekly Planet with 2 Australian chaps, and they do it. And they were saying the worst thing a film can be is just fine, and you just don't talk about it. And like at least like you know, it's got to the point where you text me and you was like, "Yeah, I want to talk about Don't Worry, Darling." I'm like, "Yeah, like I'm glad you want to talk about it because it's a good talking point, and that's why probably I like, you know, you could say failed this mission, you get them next time because you haven't convinced me not to watch it because you've said you still wanted more.
Yeah.
And if anything, just because I can like, not just because you're my friend, but also like we talk about stuff. Spoilers of podcast, but it'll be good to like watch it and be able to talk about it after if it's like invokes this much, you know, conversation and you want more and like, speculation and stuff.
It's just mostly. I think it's because it was an interesting concept. It had a good idea, right? But it just didn't quite nail it. And I mean, there are some good standout moments, you know.
The IMDb rating is also just like in mixed reviews, 6.3.
Yeah, it's right. It's such a difficult one because it's not the worst film I've ever seen. Like there are some very good redeeming moments in it. The majority of the acting is brilliant, right? It's just the sort of it's the direction they want to take the story in that it just doesn't quite land, and it takes too long to build. Would it have made more sense as a limited TV series where it's like just a one season, like a 6 episode something or other? I think that would have made more sense because it could have built the world up a little bit, given us a bit more of where it's going, but also conclude it. Because that's the biggest thing. There was no conclusion. That you don't understand what happens after the fade to black because there's so many different things that could have happened. And there's some characters that are killed off that you're like, what was the fucking point in killing them off? That made no sense.
Looking into it a bit more, I thought maybe like this was the first time Olivia Wilde has like wrote something as well as directed it. But apparently, like the main writer was the person who also wrote Booksmart, and it's like by looking at her IMDb, it's like Katie Silverman is her writer, and like she collaborates with like Olivia. But I don't know. It sounds a bit mad. Like
it could have been beginner's luck on Booksmart.
because it's like begin shooting or basketball.
I'm a bastard.
I don't know. It sounds just like even more intriguing.
Yeah, I think it's worth watching so you can form your own opinions about it. But I don't know if it's worth spending money to go to the cinema to see it. Well, no, it's not worth spending money to go to cinema to see it. Right.
In the new official rating, where does it come on the rating? Watch it on streaming, watch it on preview.
Oh right, yeah, that rating that you made up like 20 seconds ago. Yeah, wait for streaming.
Wait for streaming.
I mean, it'd be between wait for streaming and watch it on telly. But the odds are, if you're gonna watch it on telly, you're gonna have to wait like another 4 years before it comes out on telly or whatever.
Yeah, you're waiting fucking ages, ain't
you? Yeah. And by then, it's no longer a hot topic to even discuss. But yeah, it's watch it on streaming. Wait for it to come out on streaming and watch it and be like, oh, well, that was a waste of 2 hours.
Oh, there we are. As Kieran's convince me or don't convince me.
Like I said, the acting is really good. No actor did any wrong. It's just the direction and maybe the editing or the writing of it. It's not. It had so much potential, but it didn't land.
All right then.
And that's as much as I can say without
spoiling it. But that's why I want to watch it because. So you can I might go and see it, and this is art in general, I suppose. I might go watch it and be like, yeah, this is sick. I don't know what Kieran's on about, and then I can make its defense or agree with you or whatever, especially in with spoilerific terms or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the odds are by the time we do the next episode, you'll probably have seen it, so you can probably do a rebuttal.
Oh, yeah, in the next few episodes, maybe. I think I am, as you've just mentioned. In this week, I'm gonna watch The Woman King. And binge watch Lord of the Rings. But to go on to swiftly, the good old segue into my moment or my pick of the week.
Yeah, your moments of the week, yeah.
something I've like learned with like Amazon Prime, and this isn't like reinventing the wheel, is do you know how like Netflix has like a lot, like a real lot?
Yeah.
And so does, I don't know, Disney has a lot really, to be fair. And I feel like Prime doesn't have a lot of stuff, but it is good.
Slowly building.
It is good. So like, as you mentioned, watching Rings of Power, I think that is like, obviously we go into a lot more detail next week, but I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah.
We've covered Reacher. Reacher was great.
Yeah, The Boys.
Covered The Boys. Boys is great.
Yeah, I've tried to convince you to watch Invincible.
Tried to convince me to watch Invincible, which I will do at one point. And Jack Ryan again, you said it's good.
Yeah, Jack Ryan's actually got a new season coming soon as well.
I watched the film last night, basically, which is like quite new on Prime, and it's called Catherine Called Birdy, and the main star is Bella Ramsey, who started off in Game of Thrones as a Lady Mormont, and she's going to probably be like absolutely huge next year.
Let's say, isn't she going to play?
She's going to play Ellie in the Last of Us TV show.
Yeah.
And it's written for like TV for film by Lena Dunham and directed by Lena Dunham from Girls like fame. And Girls is like one of my favorite TV shows of all time. It's essentially like in-betweeners meet skins for women, girls, dare I say it. And that's a great TV show. And she like full-fledged out. But again, that came out like years ago. And she's like done a few things. But this Catherine Called Birdy is great. It's hilarious. It's basically about this young girl who's like 14 in like Lincoln in England back in the day, medieval times.
Yeah.
And her dad's a lord, so she's a lady. And her dad's played by Andrew Scott, and her mom's Billie Piper. And as the film goes on, in the first like 20 minutes, that you realise the Lord's skin, and he's got no money, he's got no finance, and he realises like one of the ways he's got to get some money is sell off his only daughter, which is the character played by Bella Ramsey, Catherine, aka dare I say Birdy, and he looks at basically selling her off, and it shows that, spoilers, women had a even worse time back in their medieval times, like to the point where, as I was saying, he realised he was skint, and he's using his only daughter as currency. That is, that's a fact.
Low key, that actually happens in The Woman King. So
is it? I don't know. But it sounds quite depressing, But the art of like Lena Dunham and what makes her like so good is that she confronts a lot of like serious stuff and still makes it emotional, but like you're laughing as well, like about like some rough things, like about like essentially like children getting married off to mad blokes, to like actual blokes, but like it's very heartfelt. It's honestly great. It's one of the best things I've watched for like a while, and it's quite refreshing as well. It's like quite quick-witted. The dialogue's written really well. Like it's weird. It's nice to see a mostly British cast film as well.
Yeah,
and it feels different. The cast, as I say, is the biggest name in it is probably Andrew Scott.
I'm trying to picture who Andrew Scott is. I know the name.
He's the priest in Fleabag.
Oh, yeah. He was the bad guy in
Sherlock.
He was a bad guy in Spectre, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's the bad guy in Spectre.
Yeah.
And he's in loads of good stuff. Billie Piper. She's been in loads of stuff. Most Common Doctor, I suppose. And the really good-looking chap in it who's in conversations with friends, but it explores a lot of stuff with her uncle. So basically, her being a rebel and not wanting to conform of being a lady and like being lady things. Why can't girls do fight, have swords or whatever? But it's a bit more like it's a bit more heartfelt than that, and like makes more sense. Like in the sense that you understand her more, and it's not boring. Like it's the pacing's really good as well. You like this tearful moments, but it makes you laugh. It's it's great. Like if you got Prime Video, like I definitely would recommend it. I suppose on the new rating, you could I'd say go to cinemas, but it was only in selected cinemas.
Yeah.
I'll say like maybe not the one near you. Something I have learned, like as opposed to just referring to it, just is the IMDb rating. It's like a lot of stuff. I know it's subjective, but the IMDb rating for like this Catherine called Birdy is 6.5, which is the same as ironically Don't Worry Darling. But this Catherine called Birdy, I'd recommend if I had to put like a number on it, not on the rating we had. Excuse me, is 8 out of 10. Yeah, it's good. Like she explores relationships with her like parents, a relationship with her best friend who's like 16, and her best friend gets married. To give you a top of how like weird and funny it is, her best friend's 16 and gets married to like a 9-year-old boy, and because his dad is minted, the 9-year-old boy's dad is minted, and he like promises loads of stuff for the 16-year-old girl to marry him. So yeah, it's weird, but also like makes a lot of sense.
Okay, no, that sounds interesting. To be fair, it sounds sounds complex.
It's not mega you'd think because it like has a lot of like explores a lot of relationships, but it seems to tidy things up quite well. So like she'll have like it'll introduce characters, but like each relationship she has with them isn't convoluted or whatever.
Yeah.
It tidies everything up. And what I liked about it a lot, as opposed to what you've hinted towards with Don't Worry Darling, is I'm not saying like he has a very happily ever after ending.
Yeah.
But it like has a tidy ending. You're not like you feel satisfied with it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah.
That's what's absolutely gold about it.
Well, that's good then. At least it was like a solid watch. And what you say? You rated it 8.5 or something?
If I had to rate and put it out of 10, I'd say like a solid 8.5. If you're on the new quote unquote patterned ending I've made up to 5 minutes ago now, I'd say watching the cinema. Because there's something to be said about a good drama, unless a drama's really good, like really, really good. How many you're probably still only watching the cinema once, I feel.
Yeah, because it's not like exciting.
Or yeah, exactly. Where don't get me wrong, I've got quite a big TV and I've got used good earphones to watch TV. I've got a good viewing thing in my living room, but there's nothing like going to the cinema to watch Star Wars again, or Batman again, or Top Gun, or something big budget mad action thing. But no, I'd say that as another before you get to your point of what you've been watching or your pick. A random one is I downloaded Overwatch 2, and I heard a lot of people saying they're struggling to get onto it or whatever, and I managed to get on fine for what it's worth. I know it has been having server attacks, people are saying. And I know, I don't know, we'll have to, or you can think of one on the spot like I did, think of a game rating system. But that's free to play, like a typical lot of things, similar to Apex, I was saying.
Yeah.
But that's good. It is really good. I know it's got the battle pass thing and whatever shit like that. So you can say yeah, it's free to play, but they make their money with the battle pass. What I like about that, and I don't think I could do a whole episode on it, so I'd just say on it now, is sometimes especially busy times, you feel like you've only got 20 minutes or half hour or whatever to play a game or something. Overwatch really ticks that box, and it's satisfying. You'll have a quick match, and most matches lasting for 10 minutes or less than that, and they're quick, snappy, and fun. And it's in a similar chat. I thought it would be quite a bit like Apex. So that's one of the reasons I thought I'd like it, and it is to a degree. But you know how, like, I think I said to you the other day, how, if you're a good Apex player, you play each legend a bit differently, like with their kit, otherwise you fucked it really.
Yeah.
Where on Overwatch, you've got to play entirely differently. Especially because
you got to play your role, is what you said.
You've got to play your role on top of that. Like, if you don't play your role, you're a dick and you fucked it for the team. But also, different damage characters are totally different. So I was playing as like and also like the community is really sweaty. If you look on their Reddit, like even more than like fucking Apex, is mad. But there's a character called Tracer.
Oh
yeah,
that's part of the song or something in it. It's I'd rather be Tracer or something.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, she's got like a weird like Cockney / Australian accent. I think she's meant to be British. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she's a glass cannon.
Yeah.
So her like thing is like she has like two. Here, if you want to keep with Apex analogies, just two alternators essentially. They're like mid-range submachine guns.
Yeah.
She dual wields them, and she has like quite low health because she's a damage character. Damage characters typically have like, because they're not tanks, like a little bit of health, or like a medium size, not a huge amount because that's like a tank role obviously. But she has like quite lower than usual. I think it's like 150 maybe, or even 250. Not loads. But her abilities and her key is she can teleport forwards and backwards, like if where she's looking.
Yeah.
And then she has recall, where if you take damage and press recall, you teleport / rewind back before you took damage. So like she's really cheesy, like, and she's fun to play as.
Oh, that's like there's a legend in Apex Mobile that does that, but I can't remember what he's called.
So she's really good, like, but she plays totally different to the guy who's like Game G, who's like basically really good. But he throws shuriken stars, and like his tactic, like that's his like main weapon, and his tactical, or if you want to say his L1, he's like a sword swipe, and he has more health, and he's more like, you've got to get up in their grill, where Tracer is, your medium range and you're dashing about. And that's just comparing two damage characters. Never mind the support / healing characters and the tanks. And I've only played it for like probably like 3 hours this week. Less than that, probably like 2 hours. And I've already picked up on like that, which is like, it's quite cool. Like, it's not mega in depth, like, analysis, don't get me wrong. But the fact that something free to play is like that different, you can like, I can see if you really got into one hero, a couple of heroes, you'd have your mains. But if you wanted to go through as a checklist and tick off loads of heroes, you could. I'd give that a recommend also, especially for, at the end of the day, like I say, it's free to play.
Yeah, until you get the battle pass, and then you get really into it, and then you end up spending shitload of money on buying all new skins. Is it third person or first person?
First person.
First person.
That's what they call him in the gaming industry, in the microtransaction industry. They call them whales, don't they? Because that's all they need. They need like, because there's not a lot of whales in there. Like, I think the analogy is because there's not a lot of whales in the sea. But once you grab one, they're huge. You make loads of money off it. So you get the people who like, on average spend like nothing on my microtransactions, probably like 10 or a 5 or just for the battle pass. Then you have the people who spend like hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
And they're the whales, like.
It's interesting that they've created an Overwatch 2, and rather than just updating Overwatch 1.
Yeah, well, the community, I was looking into it in like YouTube videos on the Reddit and whatever. Apparently, the community thinks it is, the general consensus is that it's Overwatch 1.5, because Overwatch came out in like 2016 now.
Yeah.
And like a lot of like games of a service or whatever, it's just been updated. Like, it's had new heroes every now and again, and maybe not new maps, I think. Apparently the game itself hasn't changed loads, but I think it's quite smooth and it's good. But like I say, I never really played the first one. I played the first one at a friend's house when I was at uni for like a little bit. If you want like a bit of a mad FPS with like a bit of a learning curve, because that's what's cool, is in the like a lot of the community, I feel, say, so there's a new character on it, and like even them like say, if you play her, there's like a bit of a skill level for her. If you get good at her, like, she's basically S tier, like they like to say, and she's unstoppable. But there's that skill like ceiling in it.
Yeah. Is the movement as smooth as Apex?
Well, again, the movement is smooth, but like it really depends on who you're playing as.
Oh, right.
Because if you're a tank, like I was playing as my first match I played as was this tank called like Winston, and he's a gorilla, like a talking smart gorilla. He's like Gorilla Grodd off Flash, like he's like, smart gorilla. And he's a tank who just he has like a bubble shield as his tank, and he can take a load of damage because swallows is like I say, as a tank, and he just shocks people. And so my first game I played as him, and I absolutely smashed it, done loads of damage, and I was carrying it, like quite physically carrying the team, as in like, I was being a good tank playing my role, and we won. Like there's a mode called payload. You've got to just push this thing across the map to the baddie's base, and I just stuck on the payload, kept on like, protecting the payload, and we won. And like everybody like just done their role and smashed the DPS and like healing.
Oh.
It's graphic wise, it's vibrant, and the art style is lovely. But to be fair, I think it's because it's the art style they're going for. You don't look like realistic.
Yeah.
But that's because of the art style it's went for. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that's why, like, yeah.
Yeah, it's got that sort of.
Fortnite looks cool for God's sake, but you don't look realistic, does it? Borderlands looks cool, but you don't look realistic. That's not what they went for, but it does look beautiful. Like.
Yeah, I get your meaning.
But now, what have you played or watched this week?
All right, you had 2 this week. All right, crikey. I'll go for 2, but it'd be more of an honourable mention. But so my honourable mention is The Woman King. I went to see that at the cinema, and I had not heard anything about it. It was only when I happened to be going in to see Ticket for Paradise, right? You're in the cinema, so they've got all these signs saying, when things are out at the cinema and what's up next or something. It was like The Woman King, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. It kind of looks like The Northman sort of thing. But so then, watched Ticket to Paradise, went home, went back to my hotel, should I say, and then I just looked up on what The Woman King was a little bit. In fact, I didn't even watch the trailer. And I thought, Viola Davis is playing like an African warrior. I was like, this is interesting. Where's this gonna go? What's this about, sort of thing. And I thought, you know what, I'll just go in blind, and I'll just watch the film and see what it's about. And I really enjoyed it, to be honest. I thought it was a really solid film. It was really interesting, and it really sort of shone the light on that sort of when is it set? The 1800s, in Africa in the 1800s, of the tribal. I can't remember what the place is called now. But yeah, they run a tribe, and John Boyega plays like the king of the tribe, and Viola Davis plays the sort of she's the leader of the of the women's battalion. I want to say, I can't remember what names they.
She looks like a captain of the battalion, but not a captain.
Yeah, she's like I mean, the spoiler is in the title, The Woman King. Right, so she's going to become the Woman King, or the Queen. I don't quite know why it's called the Woman King, but
Johnny Boyega dies. Spoilers going.
No, he doesn't die. It's just him promoting her, sort of thing. It's a bit weird, but she's basically the leader of the women in this battalion, and these women, they're what's the thing when they don't have sex? It's called abstinence or something, isn't it?
Abstinence.
Yeah.
Basically, they practice abstinence and abstinence. That's it. They practice abstinence. There we are. And basically, it's about their sort of society as women and how they, they could be ordinary women that rear children and work the lands with their husbands or whatever. But it's about them breaking from those roles and breaking from, I don't want to be forced into a marriage or anything like that. I don't want a husband. I want to protect my people. So it's about the women joining together and creating this band of warriors. I can't remember what they're called. To be fair, it was a little. I felt it took me a good sort of half an hour or so to get into the accent of the film, because they're obviously speaking in African, dialect, not necessarily speaking African or Afrikaan, but they're speaking that sort of that accent, and it took me a while to get my ear in to understand them. So I missed a few things at the beginning. But it's basically just about their way of life as women. I can't say much because obviously you're gonna go see it soon, and we want to talk about it in a later episode. But I was generally shocked at how much I enjoyed this film. My only criticism was that it could have been bloodier to really sell what these women had to do and what they went through. That's my only criticism.
It sounds good. Like I watched the trailer for it, and it looks really different. It looks intense. Viola Davis is gold, and it looks.
Yeah. To be honest, I wouldn't have picked Viola Davis for this role. I know she is a brilliant actress, but this feels like such a different role than she's ever taken on before. So I was a bit unsure about her, but like an African warrior queen or king, as you want to call it, being an absolute badass in battle. Like, I couldn't quite picture it, but when you see the film, holy shit, she fucking nails it. Like she is absolutely insane. And yeah, I would never doubt her again. The only thing I've ever seen Viola Davis in where I thought that was a bit shit, where she plays Amanda Waller in
the first Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that's it, the first Suicide Squad. That's the only time where I thought her character was just shit and weak. But then again, the film was a bit shit and weak.
So I don't think you're alone there for what it's worth.
Yeah, it's not her best character, but she's a solid actress and everything else. I'm still wanting to watch Fences with her and Denzel.
Yeah, so am I actually.
Yeah, I reckon that's gonna be. I feel it's gonna be a slow, methodical thing, but I know it's gonna be a brilliant brilliant acting, brilliant emotion. I can already sense that, But no, that was The Woman King is like one of my honorable mentions of the week. I think it's absolutely solid, and you should go and see it to know what these African women went through back in the 1800s, and still arguably go through today, and just women in general. Like if I had a daughter, I would 100% take her to the cinema to see this film, so she can realize that she can be a fucking warrior. I was gonna say warrior princess, but she's not a warrior princess. It's just she's a warrior. She's a fucking badass bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, it looks different. It looks like a story which hasn't been told, or like that.
No,
something like that.
Yeah, it's similar in its style to The Northman, whereas The Northman's got more sort of abstract, trippy sort of vibe that I remember talking about in the episode we did for The Northman. This has got more of a normal sort of stance of its direction and its the way it's edited and that and the way it's portrayed. So it's not on that sort of trippy front, but that sort of whole warrior vibe sort of thing that goes on through both films. It's a very similar tone. So if you enjoyed The Northman, you will enjoy this.
For what it's worth, I loved The Northman one. We both did, I think.
Yeah, but I personally think this is better than The Northman.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's high praise if you ask me. Like, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. But so that's my honourable mention there. But my other sort of moment of the week that was my planned moment of the week, was I started watching The Terminal List on Amazon, starring Chris Pratt. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I've heard bad things about it. Like,
yeah, I've heard some mixed things about it. My parents watched it when it first came out, and they were like, "Oh, we're not sure about it," sort of thing. And then they said after they finished the whole season, they were like, "Actually, it was really good. We really enjoyed it. You should watch it at some point." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I'll get round to it." And I have enjoyed things Chris Pratt's been in. I feel like the best thing I've seen Chris Pratt in was Passengers, and I actually really enjoy that film, Passengers. It's
do you?
yeah, I do enjoy it, but then I love space, so But it's not without shortcomings. I remember watching a video by Nerdwriter on YouTube, and he sort of redesigns it as if the beginning of the film is from Jennifer Lawrence's point of view, right? And she sees this guy, Jim Preston, who is Chris Pratt's character, right? and it's about him, like, why is he being really creepy, but also really sort of endearing towards her, and you sort of don't quite understand him, and you think he's really weird and he's creepy, and then when you realize that he woke her up, you should be really scared and shocked for her, and you should hate his character, and then you go into him waking up alone, and it's him trying to decide whether or not to wake her up and bring him into this world with him, right? And when he sort of redesigned the film in that perspective, I thought, shit, you've just taken this film from like a 7 out of 10 to like, an 8.5, 9 out of 10. Like, you just that simple change, like the whole premise and everything was there. It just needed that slight little twist, but I still enjoyed the film nonetheless. And there's actually a quote from Martin Sheen where he sat with him saying, you're not where you want to be, but suppose you could click your fingers and be where you wanted to be, you'd still feel like you are now, like you don't actually belong. So you need to stop worrying about where you are and make the most of where. Yeah, don't worry about where you should be, but make the most of where you are. Have a little fun, right? And that sort of quote stuck with me because, in life we all find ourselves like stuck. Thinking we should be somewhere else, or we should have achieved something else by a certain time in our lives or whatever. But it's like, don't be so fixated on where you think you should be. Enjoy where you are. Live a little, as he says. And I really like that quote. But I'm not meant to be talking about this film, but there we are.
Let's have a look at Terminal List then.
Yeah, but so the Terminal List is obviously I've only seen 2 episodes at the moment, but I'm quite intrigued by it, and I can't tell you what exactly the Terminal List means, but I can tell you what I speculate it means. So basically, he plays a lieutenant commander, or as we'd say, a lieutenant commander. Actually, I think we just say lieutenant. I don't think we have lieutenant commander over here. But anyway, but he runs this operation, and the operation goes south, and he has like a big old bump on the head, and 12 members of his team die, and he then has to sort of basically explain what happened in the operation, but they're saying what he's saying happened isn't what they've got recorded from all their like radio comms and all that. It's so they were like, why is there this change here?
So has he been thrown under the bus by the?
So you think he's been thrown under the bus, but he's saying that he's actually been targeted by the guy that used to give them information, like their inside man for the enemy, and that he's now being targeted. That they're using like deep fake voice technology to fake these communications, discredit parts of the army or whatever, or the navy. I think he's part of. I can't remember which regiment he's part of, but so he's really unsure. But at the same time, because of the big old bump on his head, he's having sort of like concussion. Yeah, he's got a concussion basically, and that's sort of affecting certain things that happen in his life, such as his daughter shows him a picture. She goes, "Oh look, it's us as a family sort of thing," and he's like, "Oh, this is really nice. I like this." And she was like, "I showed it before you went away, Dad." "What, did you?" Like, yeah. She's like, "Yeah, I drew that like weeks ago. You've already saw it." And he was like, "Oh, I don't remember," sort of thing. So there's hints and stuff. So you don't know, like, when he says that everything's been deep faked, is that true, or does he actually have concussion? So he's actually believing what he says, but he's actually wrong. And then towards the end of the episode, a big thing happens, and you realise, shit, he's not actually crazy. But then there are still things that occurred that make you think maybe he has got more brain damage or whatever than you think. So you're still trying to figure out, is the Terminal List about him trying to hunt people down? It's like when someone's terminally ill, it's like it's my list that you're gonna die. It's like your absolute you're going to die list of hunting down these people that killed his teammates, or is a Terminal List a list of people he needs to kill because he's terminally ill and he's about to die himself because of like the internal brain bleeding or whatever.
What's the action like in it? Because like I heard the general consensus that it's just meh.
So yeah, I'm trying to think of what action and stuff happens. No action has really occurred apart from like the first bit of the film where there's like they're doing the operation, but a bit of the show, should I say, not the film, where they're doing the operation itself. There's a bit of like like sort of spec ops sort of like action scene sort of going on. But 2 episodes in, there's no real action. It's mostly methodical talking and trying to understand the part and explain the part a bit more. So the world building. So there's not so much action. Um, there's in episode 2 he does a bit where he breaks into someone's house and he downloads all their data, and then he goes back to theirs at night and tries to question them, sort of thing. And that's sort of like the most sort of action you get. And then there's a bit at the end of episode 1 where he basically he's having an MRI. Sorry, bless me. He's having an MRI, and then people break in, and he has to fight them off, and then he basically has to run somewhere. And then when he gets there, there's people in this location, and there's not a lot of action. There's a bit of action, but again, it's only 2 episodes in, and if you think about like most things, such as like Lord of the Rings as an example, there's no action in Lord of the Rings until like halfway through or whatever.
Yeah, until like for what it's worth, I've only seen like the first 3 episodes, and no action until the 3rd episode. My 4 point.
Yeah, so it's it's still building into it, so I can't really say, but I understand people's skepticism about it, but I'm enjoying it. I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, I might give it a watch. Now you've tried to
But again, that's on Amazon Prime, the terminal list. I feel like we've really raised the. We bummed off Disney for a bit, and now we're bumming off Amazon Prime.
I'll tell you what. Apart from and I know your feelings on it. Apart from Cobra Kai, I haven't actually watched anything on Netflix for ages. I know Cobra Kai came out like a month ago, so it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
But I haven't watched anything on Netflix for a while.
I mean, I haven't had Netflix myself for a while anyway, because their prices went up and up and up. And I've heard actually they're bringing out an ad-supported one for like $6.99 or something.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, nah, just make better content, innit?
I don't know.
And then I'll pay the normal price, because fuck ads.
No, yeah, well that's why you don't watch TV. That's why streaming's really one of the many reasons streaming's lifted off.
Yeah.
But
I said the past week living in a hotel, and I've had to watch normal TV, and I tell you that.
Like, you take your laptop with you?
Yeah, I did, but the Wi-Fi was dodgy, and plus my laptop's knackered now because I now use a desk. I brought a desktop because my laptop was getting knackered, and I thought I'll take my laptop anyway. And I didn't realize how shit and slow my laptop is these days because I haven't used it for so long. I just watch normal shitty TV, and it's just all Freeview is fucking repeats of shit that we watched when we were kids, right? Or if you watch a film, it's a film that came out in the 50s or 60s. Which, don't get me wrong, there can be some solid films there, right? But sometimes you don't want to watch a black and white, I did watch. They did have John Wick, Parabellum on there, and there was something else I watched as well.
Channel 4 used to have good films, Mond.
No, there was no films on Channel 4. It was ITV2. It's 9 o'clock, or it's Film 4. But the best things on Film 4 typically didn't start till, there was like a 7 o'clock, 6:30 film, and then there was a 9 o'clock film, which tend to be the better films.
Film 4 is good, isn't it? But as you say, like if you work nights and you can't watch a 9 o'clock one, can
you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm asleep during that time.
Yeah, I haven't watched. I remember saying to somebody when I was looking at TVs, one TVs, they say also about every TV is now a smart TV. Yeah. If for some reason you could get like a version of your smart TV, like get a TV which isn't smart, and it's like 50 quid less, I'd do that in a heartbeat. Because literally, my PlayStation stays plugged in, and it's got all the streaming stuff on there. Apart from BBC iPlayer, which I have to use the TV for.
I'm sure you should download an iPlayer on your PlayStation.
I couldn't find it on there or whatever.
Oh,
maybe I'm just being a numbskull, but yeah, that's not on there.
Well, you're also being a numbskull because you're using your TV and your PlayStation, which is pulling two sources of electricity. That is, so you're actually paying more electricity, but then if you just use your smart features on your TV, 'cause that's what I do.
But smart features TV are slow, and I'd rather just use the PlayStation.
To be fair, mine aren't slow. Mine work perfectly fine. You got an LG as well, didn't you?
My LG is sweet.
Yeah, so I got an LG, so it should work just as quick.
I just find using the fucking remote clunky up.
Yeah, I like it. I find using the controller clunky because it's like I use this for gaming, not for watching a film.
Is it? A random thing is I don't know if you like for the audience, there's an FYI just before we wrap up, and I don't know if you know about this. PlayStation have started something called PlayStation Stars.
Yeah, like an award scheme or some bullshit like that.
And I listened to a podcast talk about it, and they works out basically if you do these challenges and you log in or you play certain games or do whatever, you earn points, and eventually, eventually, you can buy a game like a AAA game with that, but it's like you gotta get thousands of points.
Yeah.
You earn 1 point a month, and it costs 1,000 points for one game.
Wait, it's not quite that bad, but Leonie,
Yeah.
it's interesting to see what they're gonna do with that. I think they'll change it soon, and it's only been out for a couple of weeks or a week. I don't know. Might even came out on the 13th, so it's really a couple of maybe 3 days as of recording. But that's interesting. Give it a demo just to see what you think. But one of the ways of rewarding you is you have your digital shelf, and then if you do things, you get to put trophies on your digital shelf.
Oh yeah, that's what I saw when it was originally advertised, and I was like, what the fuck am I meant to do with that?
It looks like something from on Windows XP.
Yeah. What am I meant to do with a digital shelf? I can't take that to the bank, can I?
You can't take that to the bank, but you can't even put it in your living room. Show how geeky you are. It's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
It's like dating an AI girl or whatever. Have you seen those AI Playmate or some shit like that? I saw it was an app that was advertised through Instagram sponsored or something, and it was download now or install now, and it was AI Playmate or something. It was a virtual girlfriend.
For yourself.
There's a virtual girlfriend that you can sort of chat to and create a relationship with, and I'm like, how fucking sad are people that this needs to be a thing? This is so desperate. But at the same time, I was I'm intrigued at how this works.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I going to find a new best friend?
I don't know. It'll be ideal for you, wouldn't it? Be all right, more friends, isn't it? More friends for everyone, mate.
I've already got 3 friends. That's far too many.
That's far too many. That's far too many. That's what Kieran thinks. But no, we'll keep you posted on our opinions of PlayStation Rewards and how they are currently dog shit and maybe get better. I don't know.
But yeah, we hope you enjoyed this episode.
More so than usual. We covered a lot, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we mentioned a lot of shit this episode, to be fair.
What so we recommended. What was your recommendations? Your moments of the week.
Catherine called Birdy on Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
give Overwatch 2 download.
Yeah, so Catherine called Birdy, Overwatch 2, The Woman King, and the terminal list is maybe a recommendation. I'm only 2 episodes in, so we'll see. Right, but then a non-recommendation is Don't Worry Darling, which is what this episode will be titled.
This episode will be titled Don't Worry Darling, despite another half of it being just pure recommendation.
Yeah, of better things to watch.
Better things to watch.
But
thank you for listening as always. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tell as many people as you can, and if you love two best friends talking about random films, TV and games, just recommend it to people,
Yeah, we will always appreciate any feedback, shout outs, and shares, likes, and follows, and all that jazz. We do appreciate it, and we do notice when those things happen. I noticed we did get a comment actually on one of I think it was Horizon Forbidden West. We got a comment on the YouTube, but because I hadn't opened the app for a month, I didn't see the notification, so I didn't respond to that in time. But I have responded now, so thank you, person, for leaving that comment. That was very nice of you. And we'll catch you in the next one, which The next one will probably be maybe the Woman King or Lord of the Rings, depending on where Mikey gets.
Yeah, I think it'll be, it'll rather be one of those two, which I'm both looking forward to talking about.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll catch you in the next one.
See ya, bye.
Bye.